Hello everyone. In this video, we will learn the basic and the fundamentals of Python programming language. Now, before that, to learn any language, let's say if it's an English language, so it's important to learn. You start with first learning about the alphabets from A to Z, and learn about the words, the grammar, and the paragraphs, and how to write sentences, and a bunch of different stuff before you start advancing into the next level. Similarly, in the Python programming language, we will start with the basics and the fundamentals called variables. We'll start learning about what are the variables, what are the different data types of variables are there, how to print any message, how to write down expressions, and then once we are very comfortable with these concepts, then obviously we can easily move into the advanced concepts of Python programming language. So let's deep dive into and understand what are variables in Python programming language. Now, variables in Python are used to store values or any data so that they can be used later in your program for any kind of operations or instructions or any kind of a task. Now, so as we know in our high school, the area of circle is pi r square. So R stands for radius of circle. So in R we are storing the value of radius of circle. It can be 5, it can be 10. And the output of pi r square, we are storing that output value into another variable called a, which is area. So here a and r are variables in terms of Python programming language. So r, we are basically saying that it's an input variable where we are passing some input value, and then the output of this calculation we are storing into the output variable called a. So a will store the output variable, output value, and r is the input variable which is storing the input value. Now the way we will write this thing in the Python programming language is simply, let's say the area of circle is pi r square. So r I am passing as 5 centimeter or 5. The equation of area is, as you know, 3.14 multiplication r into r, and then simply it will provide. Then I am printing the output of this equation. So the way we print the output of the equation in Python is using the print function. So print, and then inside the round brackets, you will pass out the value whichever you want to print. If you want to print the message or the value, you can do it in the print message. For example, if I break down this print statement inside the double quotes, I'm just printing some message that area of circle is equal to, and then putting the comma, and then after the comma I'm passing the output variable which I'm storing in a. So a basically will store the area of a circle. Similarly, I'm also calculating the circumference of circle. So circumference of circle stands for 2 times pi into r. So that's what I am doing. 2 multiplication 3.14 multiplication r basically storing the value of 5. So that is our input variable, and the calculation or the output of 2 pi r, I'm storing that output into another variable which is c. So c would be our output variable, and then I'm printing the message, the circumference of circle. And so as we can see that area of a circle is coming out to be 78.5 and the circumference of circle is 31.4. So this is how we can use the variables to store any input value and then calculate some expression, and the output of that expression we can store into the output variable. In this example is a and the c, and this a and c we can use sometime later in our code as well. So the next we will learn about the print statement. The print statement is a very simple print statement. As the name suggests, we are printing some message. So we can do multiple things inside the print statement. We can simply print as some kind of a message, a, b, c, some message like area of a circle, circumference of a circle. At the same time, we can also print some output value as well. So for example, in the first print statement, I have put inside the double quotes a. So whenever we put anything inside the double quote, it simply means I'm just printing some message. That's it. There is no input value or output value associated with it, just printing some message. That's it. But when I put any value inside the circular brackets without double quotes, in this example, this statement print a, it means Python is expecting that this is a variable, and in this variable we have stored some value in it so that it can print that value. Now in the third statement, which is print double quotes Python. So this is what Python is saying, that hey, since there is a double quote, so it means it's simply just a message. There is no input variable, no output variable. Now in the fourth statement, it's saying print Python but without any double quotes. Now here Python is expecting that there is a variable called Python, similar to like A, C or R in our previous example. There is a variable called Python and it already been defined with some value in it. So when I run this equation or this cell, what I'm getting here is printing A, because it's in double quotes, it's just simply A. Next statement, printing A but without double quotes, is printing some value. So we have already calculated the value of A in our example, which came out to be 78.5. So it's printing that message, 78.5. Then this particular print statement is simply saying new line character, means print the next message after the next line. So there should be one gap afterwards. And then print Python. So print Python is simply again a message. So it has printed the Python. And in the fourth message, we have seen that there is an error because there is no double quotes. So Python is expecting it as a variable. So Python as a variable. But if you see, we have not defined a Python variable in our code so far. We have not assigned any value to it, and that's why it's throwing an error, because Python is not able to find out where this Python variable exists. So let's say if I created a Python variable or a Python string which has a language in it. So I'm storing a value language in the Python. It's a string or it's a character or it's a word, where in Python variable I'm storing language. So now if I print, now there is no error. Now it's printing the message print Python. So Python we have stored as language. Now this Python has converted into a variable where we have stored a value called language. Now it's printing that value language. So that's pretty much about the print statement. So in this way you can combine print message where you are printing message as well as some value, or you can do isolation where you're just printing some message or you're just printing some value. So you can do multiple different combinations of it. So in this video, we will learn about the different type of variables, how many different type of variables we have, and how can we use, how can we convert from one form to another. This is what we will going to learn in this video. So first of all, in Python, we have a multiple different type of variable exists. So the first variable is float variable. So float variable is the one where we basically store all the decimal values or the continuous values. So decimal values where we will have like some value after decimal places. It can be 10.2 or 10.6 or 1.2, 1.02, 100.2, something continuous value or the decimal values. The second one is the integer values, where we are storing the whole numbers or the discrete values, where the values could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 10 and so on. Something which is whole number, not a decimal value. Third, we can have a string variable. String variable is something where we can store some textual information in it. It can be any textual information which can have words, characters or even numbers, or a combination of characters and the numbers. So we can store anything inside that string. And the fourth variable which can be very useful is a Boolean variable, which basically store the binary value like true and the false. And so one more thing, like all those different type of variables we have learned, like integer, string, Boolean and float, all those are called data types in Python. So whenever somebody asks you, hey, what is the data type of this variable? So they're basically asking for you, or they want to know whether this variable is like an integer data type or a string data type or a float data type or a Boolean data type. So now in this example, let's see a first example of float. So now here we have created a variable called revenue, and I'm storing a value 75,000.45. Now there is a function in Python called type, which basically will tell me what is the data type of the variable. So inside the type function, you can pass on the name of the variable, and this function will tell us whether this variable belongs to which category of data type, whether it's a float or integer and so on. So let me run and show. So here, as we know that revenue is storing a decimal value or more like a continuous value, so the Python has recognized itself as a float. So that's a good thing, that we don't have to explicitly needs to tell to Python that hey, this is an int or string, but Python is smart enough to understand based on the value whether this variable is a float or a string or integer and so on. Similarly, let's say we have a company of employees 100. So here I am storing a number 100 or a value 100 or a discrete value 100 into the employee variable, and this type employees will tell us what is the data type of this particular variable, and we can see that Python has itself recognized as an int. And similarly, I'm creating a string. So always a string will always be defined inside a single quotes or a double quotes. So whenever you pass any value inside the single quotes or a double quotes, Python will understand that this is a string data type. So here I'm passing a string value inside the variable name, and this type name will tell me what is the data type of this variable. And we can see that the data type of this variable name is string because it contains some textual information, which is Python. And then next, as I said, that boolean basically tell you whether it's a true or a false or a binary value. So here I'm passing the value true into the variable called boolean or bool, and when we see that Python is able to recognize it, since it has a true and a false value, so it has to be a binary data type or a boolean. Now, so moving on to the next topic, lot of time a scenario comes up when you have to convert from one data type to another data type. If your value have a float, you want to convert into integer, or integer value into a float, or maybe some string which has only numerical values you want to convert into an integer, and so on. So there can be multiple times it happens when you have to convert from one form to another, and the way we can do in Python is very straightforward. So earlier we have created a variable called revenue, which is storing a float value 75,000.45, the revenue for, let's say, for this month. Now let's say a scenario comes up where we have a business application which it wants that revenue always stored in as a whole number, not as a decimal places, like a complete whole number. So for that we will convert into integer form. So we already know that revenue belongs to a float because it contains some decimal values. Now we need to convert from float to int. So the way we will do is we write the name of that data type, the destination data type, which is in this case is integer. So int is a function we will use, and then we will pass the value revenue. So int revenue basically will store the whole number of that value. So instead of storing 75,000.45, so the expectation that it will store 75,000 only. Although there is a problem here, there is a loss of information of 0.45, but that's a business problem. That's a business application that they want to store, whole number. So they don't care about the loss of certain information. But this is how we can do in Python by using a function called int and then put it as revenue. So this basically will convert your revenue value into an integer. So we can see that revenue is now 75,000 through this print statement, and the next print statement is telling me the data type of this variable. So now it has converted into int. You can see that now, although we have lost some information of 0.45, but again this is a business application, so they don't worry about this loss. So this is how we can convert from float to int. Similarly, we can convert from int to float. So let's say another business problem has comes up which says that hey, although we are storing the number of employees in the as a whole number in the integer format, now we want to convert into a float. So simply use the function, inbuilt function float, and then pass that variable name which you want to convert, and then output of float employees will get stored back into this variable employees. And then I am just printing the employees value, and in the next print statement what would be its data type. We can see that employees are 100.0 because now it has converted into a float value, and the data type of employees is now float. And the third conversion, and another conversion we can do, is to convert string to int. Now this is very interesting because string we basically store more like a textual information or words or the characters, but still we can convert string into int if string only contains some numerical values in it. So let's say sometimes it happens that companies store the account number in the string format. for some reason, for some business application, maybe some memory optimization, or it might happen that account number starts with a 0. If you store it as an integer, it will remove that 0 from the first place. But when you store it as a string will retain that 0 number in front of it. So there could be a business scenario where they want to store account number as a string. So let's say we are also storing account number in a string, and we have passed that value in the double quotes. Now in the next statement, I'm just printing before conversion, before we are converted into a different form, and then I'm printing the account number, and the second would be the data type of account number, which is type account number. So it will tell me what is the data type of the account number before conversion. Now after conversion, so idea here is we will be converting string to int. So as we learn, in order to convert into any data type into int, we will use a function called int and then pass a variable name, which is account number, and then store this new converted value back into the account number variable. And then simply I'm printing the account number value and what would be the new data type of the account. So we can see that before conversion, account number is same 8125834, but before the conversion, data type of account number was string. Now after conversion, the account number is same, there is no change, but the data type of account number is now int. Now as I said that sometimes why companies want to store their account numbers in a string format, this because sometimes the account numbers are starting with let's say 0. Now the good thing about the string is that string will retain the 0 in front of it. But if you convert into an int or a numerical value, then this 0 will be wiped out. So for example, let me convert. Now we can see that before conversion, account number is 08125834 and the data type of account string. Now after converting into an int, so the account number now is 8125834. So we can see that we lost that 0 in the first place, and the data type of account number is int. So it's very important to understand why we want to use string data type, at what place we want to use float or int, because there can be some loss of information when we are converting from one form to another. So it's very important that we should aware of that scenario. Next thing we can do is to create some expressions in the Python. Expression can be anything. It can be like a basic operations, like we are adding multiple numbers, dividing multiple numbers, concatenating string, subtraction, doing any kind of operations. It's called expression. Let's say, for example, in the first expression, I am just doing multiplication 2 into 3 and then adding 1 to it. So the answer would be, I think, would be 7. So that is one expression. Very simple, very mathematical, simple operation. The another expression I can do is like 11 modulus operator 5. So this modular operators will tell me the remainder of the division. So I'm expecting that it would be 1 here. The remainder would come out to be 1. Or if you want to find the square or the cube number in Python, you can have multiple ways you can find out the square or the cube. The one way, which is not a very efficient way, is to write, let's say if you want to square, you will write r into r. But the more efficient way of finding the square or the cube of a number is pass the variable name, which is r, and if you want to do square of square, then 2 times star, and square, it means you're doing a 2. So square of a number you're doing, so just pass a 2. If you're doing a cube of a number, so you will pass a 3. So it will do the raised to power 3. And another thing what we can do in the string is to concatenate or combine multiple strings into one. So for example, let's say I have this first string in the double quotes, which is hello. Then we can combine the string using the plus sign. So the plus sign, and then I'm passing the second string, which is space. So I want to have space between the two strings or the two words. Then I'm again putting plus, so it will again add the string, and then I'm passing the third string, which is Python in the double quotes. So let me run and show you the output. So we can see that for the first expression we are getting the number 7, which is the expected. The second, we were getting the remainder of this expression, which is 1. Then the thirdly, we are finding the square and the cube of a number. So we want to know the square of 2, and the cube of 2. So we can see that square of 2 is getting 4 and the cube of 2 is getting 8. And the finally concatenation of strings. So we are combining and joining multiple strings into one. We can see that hello coming from this string. Then we are passing the space, which is giving the space here, and then the name of the second string Python. So hello Python. So in this way we can combine multiple strings into one. Previous video we learned that how to combine multiple strings into one using the concatenation operation, but there are many other different things which we can do in strings. So some of the things which we can do in strings I will showcase you in this video. So now let's get started. So I have created the string and the variable name is str, and in this str I'm storing a value which is hello space. So there is a space between hello and world, space, and then world. So what does it mean? That the Python will count anything inside this double quote as a part of that element. So anything which is present inside this double quote, it will count it as a string. So for example, if I put a space here, it will count the space as well inside that double quotes. So it means this str variable will store the value as space hello space world. So remember that, because that is very important. Sometimes when we calculate the length of the string or when we have to access the elements of the string, sometimes we get confused that hey, why I'm getting a different length of a string, or why I'm getting some space, because Python will count this space as the part of a string. So remember that. So here I have, as I said, that created a string variable called str storing a value hello space world, and the data type is string because it's Python understand that since there is a double quote present, so it's a string. So now the next question comes up, how to access any elements inside the string. So if I want to know, hey, what is the fourth character in the string, or what is the fifth character in the string, what is the eighth character in the string, or what is the first character in the string. So in order to access the element inside the string, we will use very simple thing. We will put the name of this variable, which is str here. Then inside the square brackets, we will put the location number or the index number or the indices. So remember one thing, that in Python the location number or index number starts from 0, not from 1. So if you want to find out the first element of a string, then you will put it as 0 as the index number, not 1, it's 0. So if you put 1, then it will print you the second element of the string. So this is how Python has created the index number or the location number. It always starts from 0. Now another interesting thing Python has given to us, in order to find out the last element of any string, you can put it as -1. So if you put a -1, it will print or find the last character or element of a string. Similarly, if you put -2, so it will find the second last element of the string. So let me run this cell and we can see the output. So as we can see, the string is hello world. So the first element of the string is h, we can see, which we find through str square bracket 0. The second element of the string is e, which is correct, which we got through str square bracket 1. The last element of the string is d, which is absolutely correct, which is d, which we got through str -1. And the second last element of the string is -2. So we have got through -2, which is l, so it's printing as l. So this is how we can access the elements of the string. Now another thing is that instead of finding only a single element, we can find multiple elements as well, or we can do slice and dice of the string as well. So let me explain you quickly. So as we know that in this string, the total number of characters which are present are 11, not 10, 11, because it's counting the space as well between hello and world. So there are 11 elements inside this string. And as I told you earlier that the indexes or the indices will start from 0. So in the location 0 we have character h. In location 1 we have character e. Similarly, as I said that in the location number 5 we have a space, which is a space between hello and world, and the location number 10 storing the last element of the string, which is d. Now in order to do the slice and dice, or to find the more than one element inside the string, or the continuous more than one element inside the string, we can do is pass the name of the variable. Now inside the square brackets, we will pass the starting location from where you want to start this slice thing, and what would be the end point. So here the starting is 2, which means the index number of the location number 2, which means the third element. So it will start from the third element, and I have put as location number 7. So Python will pick the last element which is present in location number 6. So it's destination -1. So this is how Python will work. It's little confusing, but when you start using it more and more, you will understand, how to do the slice and dice and how to put those numbers. So here the simple thing is that location 2, pick the element which is present in location 2, and pick all the elements from location 2 till 6, because the end we have given as 7. So from 2 to 6, then the elements which are present are L, O, space and W. So this particular str2:7 will print this value LLO space W. Similarly, string starting from 0, it will go till 7, which means the location number 6. So 0 will start from H, E, L, O space and W. Now in the third one, I have not passed any element, any number. It means by default, it's a default thing that we are saying that start from 0. So by default it will start from 0 if string doesn't find any number, and it will go till 7. Similarly, here I am passing the starting number as -3. It means the third last element, and then it will go till the end. So -3 will become the third last element, which is R, and it will go till RLD. And then here I am saying that start from 0, the starting location is 0, but end till the third last element, which is O. So when I run it, you can see the output I am getting. 2 to 7, I am getting the same one, LLOW. From 0 to 7, H till 6, hello W. Same here, I didn't pass any number, so it will start from 0. So 0 to 7, or I say 0 to 6 would be H till W, and -3 till last, which will the third last element. So will start from a third last element, which is R, and it will go till the end, because there is no number present after the colon, so it will assume that we are saying that go till the end, which is RLD, and same with the last, which is starting from 0 and going till the third last element. So it is printing hello space WO. So this is how we can do the slice and dice. We can access the elements of the string. The next important thing is that strings are immutable, which means that once you have defined a string, let's say here str hello world, now I cannot update the elements of a string. So for example, if I say that, hey, can you replace H with F, let's make it fellow world. So here, if I go in this way, here update string, the first element, which is 0 equal to F, it will throw an error. That string doesn't support this kind of a thing. So string are immutable. We cannot update once we have defined the string. The secondly, we can find the length of a string. So we know that in this string hello space world, 5 plus this space 6, and then world another 5. So 5 plus 1 plus 5 equal to 11. So I'm expecting that the length of a string, it will print as 11. Now the way we can do in Python, using the function called len. So if you use a function called len and then pass on the variable, it will tell you the length of a string. So the length of a string is 11 here. Now we can do the other way around as well, string reverse. We can reverse the string as well. So here the str or the string variable is storing a hello space world, but we can reverse it as well. So once we reverse, we are expecting the output would be D, L, R, O, W and so on. The way we can do is little confusing, but I will break down into chunks. So when we pass 2 colons, what it means that access the element from, since there is no value present, from beginning till end. From beginning till end. But what I'm doing here is that this -1. So -1 means that access the element from 0 to n, but in other way around. Start from -1, from the last place. And we can see that, it's printing the reverse of a string. So 2: means that it has to be all the elements, start till end. But the moment I print -1, it's saying that go in the other way around. So pick all the elements in reverse order. Or I can say that in this example, since I'm passing no elements, just passing 2 colons, it means that pick the elements from start till the end, all the elements. So we can see that it's picking all the elements, which is hello world. Now in this example, if I go above, I'm passing 2 colons, so which means that it has to be from start to end, like all the elements. But here I'm passing the +2. So +2 means that it's not a reverse, you have to start from the beginning. But 2 means that pick the alternate elements. Like a 2 means skip access the second, 4, 6, 8. So the step size is 2. So pick the 0, 2nd, 4, 6, 8. So we can see that here the print is HLOWRD. So as I said, start from the beginning, pick the first element H, then 2 means step size 2. So pick the second element afterwards, which is L here. Now after the L, the second element is O. So it's picking HLO. Then after O, pick the second element. So the first element is space, the second element is W. So it's picking W. Now after the W, pick the second element. To skip the 0, pick the R. And similarly, pick the second element after R. So skip the L and the second element is D. So in this way we are doing the step size starting from beginning till the end and the step size of 2. The next thing what we are learning is how to find a substring inside a string. So let's say we have defined a substring called hello world, and then I'm also defining another string, or I can say the substring equal to LLW. So the question is this LLO present in this string or not? Whether it's present in this string or not. So the way we can do is to use the function called find. So we will pass the name of this string, which is string here. So name of this variable string, and then I'm saying that dot, the function name is find, and find this value LLO. So it basically will tell me that whether the value is present or not. So when I run this, it's telling me true. So what it means that whenever you get a value of positive value, it means that this substring, which is LLO, is present in the hello world. Or let's say go in this way, in this way. So if a substring is not present inside a string, then it will basically print a negative value. So in this example, LWO. So LWO is not present in above string, so it should throw a negative value. So -1. It means this substring is not present or inside this bigger string, which is hello world. So next thing what we're going to learn is to find out how many times substring is present. So for example, in this example we have defined a bigger string called hello space hello, and the substring is LLO. So we can see that LLO substring is present 1, LLO 2. So 2 times is present. So visually I can tell that hey, there are 2 times it's present. But the question is that is there any function available in Python which can find out for us? And the good thing is that yes, there is a function available, and the way we can use it is to pass the string or the bigger string, which is in our example is string dot, and the name of the function, which is count. So count is the inbuilt function in Python which will count the number of substrings, and then you pass the smaller string, which is this one. And we can see that it's printing the value as 2, or it's output 2, because LLO is present 2 times. So in this way we can do another thing, like let's say LLO2O. Now we can see that LL2O is not present inside this bigger string, so we expect the output to be 0, and we can see that. The next thing we can do is how can we convert from uppercase to lowercase. So string, many times the scenario comes up when we have to convert from into uppercase or into lowercase. So let's say there is a string called hello space world, and we want to convert into both uppercase as well as lowercase. So the way we can do in Python is using the function called upper. So if we use the upper function, it will convert from any type of a format to a uppercase format. And similarly, in order to convert into any textual format into a lowercase format, we can use a function called lower. So str is the name of our variable, which is hello world. We are passing hello world, and then this function dot upper will convert into uppercase. Similarly, str pass the name of the variable and then dot lower. So the lower function will convert into a lowercase. So inside the print statement, what I am doing is doing the multiple things. So first, in the double quotes, there is a message uppercase of the. So it means in the double quotes there is no values there. It's just a plain simple message. Then plus. So I am combining this all those message into one. Then str. So since there is no double quotes, now Python will expect that this str is some kind of a variable and there is some value in it. So in our example, so str is storing hello world. Then another plus to concatenate. Now I'm passing is. So is present in double quotes. Python expects that it's a simple message. There is no value in it. Another plus, and then I'm passing the output, which is str.upper. So this particular value will basically convert this hello world into the uppercase, and similarly in the below one. So we can see the output. The uppercase of the hello world is in the uppercase, and lowercase of the hello world is in the hello. So the next thing what we can do is to split the string split. A lot of times a scenario will come up that when you have to split a sentence into a words or a tokens, and that's where the split function would be very helpful. So for example, let's say here is the variable what we have defined called string, and the value is hello space world space Python, and in order to split this string, we will use a function called dot split. Now the next question comes up. Okay, we are splitting a string into multiple parts, but what would be the criteria? So the criteria here is, I am saying that whenever you find a space, split from that part. So here the space is two places. So space is here and the space is here. So basically the first split will happen between hello space world. It becomes two different strings, and another split will happen world space Python. So the second split will happen here. So since I have not passed anything here, so by default it's expecting that this Python has to split based on the space criteria. So we can see that when I run this command, so the first thing is doing is just printing the output of it, string underscore split. So we can see that based on the space criteria, now we have three different strings: hello, world, Python. And the way we can access this individual string, as we learn, through square brackets and pass the location number or the index number. Now in this second print statement, I'm passing the location or indices number or index number as 0. In the next print statement, I'm passing the first, and in the next print statement, I'm passing the index number as 2. So when I say 0, it will print this hello. When I'm passing this 1, it will print the world, and when I'm passing the 2, it's printing the Python. Now let's change the split criteria. Let me put as space, underscore. And we can see now the split is happening based on the underscore criteria. So it's able to recognize, hey, I have passed underscore here in this function. So now it has to split whenever it finds a split value. So for example, let me add one more thing. Let's say language. And now it's splitting at 3 times. So split will happen here, second would be happen between world and Python, and the third would be Python and language. In this way, we will get a 4 different type of strings: hello, world, Python, language. Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss and learn about a data structure called list in Python. So the list is quite similar to like what we do in Excel spreadsheet, where we can have a row number 1, which can have multiple columns. Like on this screen we have row number 1 containing values like 1 Python, 2.2 language, and similarly we can have row number 2 with different columns like 2 Java, 1.2 language. Now this similar kind of a data format or a data structure we can do in Python as well through the concept of a list. So list basically can store multiple values as well as it can store mixed data types. Now the Python recognize list through square brackets. So if you see on the screen, Python recognize the list through square brackets, and then inside the square brackets you can provide your values, whatever you want to store in the list. Now the good part is that list can store any number of values. Like if you want to store 2 values, 3 values, or any n number of values. Now at the same time, list also give you a flexibility that you can store values of any data types. Like it can be integer, it can be string, or it can be float. So that's a great part of it. So let's go deep dive into the Jupyter notebook, and I will show you some examples like how can we define a list, how can we create a list, how can we execute, and what kind of steps we can do on a list on a Jupyter notebook. So let's go into the Jupyter notebook. So far what we are doing in a Python notebook is that we are storing only one value in any given variable. Like for example, we are storing only one value 25 in a variable called age, and similarly we are storing only one variable Mohit in another variable called name. So every time you will have scenarios where you have multiple values, the way we do in an Excel spreadsheet. So now what we can do, I have created a list here called name. Then as I said that Python recognize whether it's a list or not through square brackets. So here I have provided the square brackets here, and then inside the square brackets we will provide our values. Like here I have provided 4 values: Mohit, Jain, Python, list, and then all those 4 values will be stored in a variable called name. And then similarly I have created a second list called age. Age is a second list, square brackets, and then it has 4 values: 30, 45, 27, and 37. And then I am also checking the data type of this list. So the function here is type, and then inside that type I am providing the variable age. So when I run it, I will get the 4 values, which is Mohit, Jain, Python, list, will get stored in the list called name. And similarly the values, which is 30, 45, 27, 37, get stored in the variable called age. And you can see that Python has recognized that these are called lists. So basically Python recognized through the square bracket. So we know that the 2 lists what we have created, name, age, are both lists. Now as I said earlier that list also give you a flexibility that we can store values of different data types as well. For example, here we have Mohit with a string, 30 with an integer, and that's a good thing that we can exactly replicate what we do in the Excel spreadsheet as well. So when I run it here, it will create a list called information, which has 4 values: Mohit, 30, Python, 10. And as we can see that Python has already recognized as a list because we have stored all those 4 values in the square brackets. Now the next question comes up. Now we have created the list. The next part comes up that how if I need to understand what is the value present in the second location or a third location or a fourth location, or let's say whether a given element, let's say Mohit or 30, present in which location of the list, how can we figure it out in the Python? So the concept is very simple. The way we do in the Excel spreadsheet. Let me go back to the my PowerPoint. So the concept is very simple. Like for example, on the top, which is Excel spreadsheet, let's say it has 2 rows with 4 columns. Now in order to know, one is present in which cell, we can say that, hey, column A and the row A, so A1. So the value present in A1 cell is equal to 1. So A is here is a column and row is 1. Similarly, the way we access the elements in the list is the location number in the Python in the list. It starts with the location number 0, not with 1. So if you want to know what is the first element present in the list, it will present in the location number 0, not it will not start from 1. So Python has this default functionality the developer has created that any location will start from 0, not from 1. So here, if you want to know me what is the first element present in this list called L, so we will put it as L square bracket 0. So L, which is the name of the list, square bracket 0 is the location number. So L0 will tell you the first element in the list. So in this example, L0 equal to 1. And similarly, L square brackets 1. So 1 becomes the second element of the list. In this case, it's Python. So let's go back into the Jupyter notebook and see how it works in the Python. So the next part is to understand how can we access the elements in the list. So as I already mentioned that the location number in the list will start from 0, not from 1. So if you want to find out the first element in the list, then you need to put the index or the location number 0. So let's see in the examples. We have already created a list called information which has four elements. Mohit 30, Python 10. Let me create it here. It's already been created with 4 elements. Now if you want to know the first element of this list, what we need to do is to put the name of the list, which is information, then the square brackets, and then inside the square bracket the location number or the index number. So here I am passing 0 as the index number, then this particular value, this particular information 0 will print the value of the first element of the list. Similarly, the information, which is the name of the list, square bracket 1, will print the value of the second element in the list. So let me create it, and we can see that information 0, which is the first value in the list, which is Mohit, and secondly information 1 is the second value in the list, which is, or the second element in the list, whose value is 30. So we can see. So in that way, we can use the concept of location number or the index number to find out the value or the element in the list. Similarly, we can go with the other way around, that hey, I know that the Python value or the element is present in the list, but I don't know the location number or the index number of this Python. So what we can do, simply write down the name of the list, which is information dot, then you will pass the function called index, then the circular brackets, and then in the circular brackets you will provide the value. Like for example, here I am passing the Python. So this function information dot index will tell me the location number of Python. So this element Python is present in which index or the location number in the list. So it's saying 2. So what does it mean here? So as I said that the index number will start from 0. So 2 means Mohit 0, 30, 1, Python 2. So it's telling me that this Python is present in the index number 2, which is, you can say, the third element of the list. Now the next part will comes up that instead of finding only the one value, how about finding the range of values? Like if I want to know that, okay, from index number 1 till index number 4, or I can say the location number 1 to location number 4, what are those set of values are present inside the list. So what we can do is very simple. Again, first you will write down the name of the list, which is in our case is information. Then you will provide the square brackets. Then you will first provide the starting location, starting position. So in this example, which is 0, then you will provide the default like a colon, and then after that you will provide the ending position or the destination position. So in this example I am saying 0, 2. Now here is the interesting part. Again, it can be little confusing in the beginning, but this is how Python developer has built this concept. 0 means it will start from the 0th element or a 0th location. Then the ending position, which is 2, is typically saying that you want to print the values from 0 till 1. So the ending position 2 will be, you have to reduce by 1. So for example, let's go in this way. So first I'm printing the information, which is the list. So it will print all the 4 elements. And then secondly, I'm saying that, hey, print only those values which starts from 0:2. So it's starting from 0, which is Mohit, then 1, which is 30, and 2, which is Python. So it will always go -1 the end position. So if you want to print the values from 0 to, if you want to print the 3 elements, the first 3 elements, then you will go 0:3. So basically now it will print you the 3 elements. So 0th location, first location, and the second location. So basically the ending position -1. Another really good concept or the functionality given by the Python in the list is that if you want to print out the last element of the list, then you can, instead of going counting how many elements are present in the list, you can just put it as -1. So information here is the name of the list, the square brackets -1. So -1 will go in the reverse order. Now -1 will tell you what is the value or the element present in the last location of the list. So if I run this command, information square bracket -1, basically it will tell you that the last element of this list is 10. Else you have to count the number of how many total number of elements are present in the list, and then you will provide here and it will give you the value of that last element. Similarly, if you want to pull out the second last element of the list, you can put it as -2. So print, it will print the value, information square bracket -2, go. You will get Python, which is the second last element of the list. So this is a great functionality provided by the list, which will be very helpful in a lot of different scenarios when we have a huge data set or a big data set. This kind of things make our life very easy. So the next concept we will go through is a mutable. Now let's go back into my PowerPoint. Now list, so mutable. So another very good functionality provided by the list is the concept of mutable. So what I mean by mutable is that list is mutable means we can change the value of the list after defining it as well. Let's say, for example, I have created a list. It has 4 elements. Let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And later on, I realize that, hey, I need to update some of the values of the list. Maybe due to some reason, I need to update their values. So list provide you the functionality that you can update the value. So basically, list is mutable. For example, update. For example, in the Excel spreadsheet, let's compare with the Excel spreadsheet. For example, I have already let's say there is a 1 row in the Excel spreadsheet which is 1 Python 2.2 language, and later on I realized that, hey, I need to update the language from I need to update the column number B from Python to Java. You can simply update and update the value. So in the list you can do this functionality. Secondly, let's say you want to delete an element from the list. So for example, column number D, which is language, and you need to delete it, you just right click and delete that column. So same way you can do in Python as well. And thirdly, the add. You can add, let's say you want to add a column number E in your Excel spreadsheet, you just enter the number 150 or any value to add or append the next column into it. So the list will give you all the functionality. You can update the values in the list, you can delete the values in the list. At the same time, you can add or append the values at the end in the list as well. So let's go into the Jupyter notebook and see how it works there. Now as we know that we have already created a list name called information, which has 4 elements. Let me print it out again. It has four elements: Mohit, 30, Python, and 10. Let's say now I want to update from this value 10 to 15. Now remember, as you know that the indexes start from the 0. So Mohit would be 0 index, 30 would be 1, Python would be 2, and 10 would be 3. So simply what I will do, I will write down the name of that list, which is information, square brackets, 3, and then equal to 15. So what it will do, in the index number 3, which is 10, it will update the value from 10 to 15. And done. So the new updated list would have Mohit, 30, Python, and 15. And similarly, I can do, let's say if I need to update, let's say I need to update this 15 to training. So again, the index number or the location number is 3. I will put and I can update. So Mohit, 30, Python, training. Very simple. Now let's say you want to delete an element in the list. There are a couple of ways which we can delete the elements in the list. The first function is provided by the Python is pop function. So information would be the name of your list dot pop pop function. Then in the square bracket, in the circular brackets, you will provide the index number or the location number. Here I am providing 3. So again, so Mohit 0, that will start from index number 0, 1, 2, and 3. So basically I am saying I want to delete this element from this list. So now now the new list has only 3 elements, which is Mohit, 30, Python. Similarly, I can remove similarly I can delete any element between the list as well. It's not like it's not like I can delete only the last element, but I can delete the element between the elements as well. So for example, information.pop1. So the 1 here is our 30. So basically I'm expecting that my output would be Mohit and Python. So we can see that the new list is Mohit, Python. Now another way we can delete any element using the keyword called del. And then del is a function. Inside the del function, in the circular brackets, I will provide the name of the list and then the location number or the index number. So here I am deleting the first element of the list. So we can see that the new list is only Python. And we can see that in the first location, which is the first index number, only one element is present, which is called Python. So this is how we can delete or remove any element from the list, whether from beginning, from end, or in between the list as well. Now the third concept, now we have learned how to update and delete. Now the third concept is how can we add an element in the list. So it's very simple. So Python has given us the function called append. So dot append. You will provide the name of the list dot, and then the function is called append, and then afterwards you will open a circular brackets and inside whatever value you want to add in the list. So let's say I want to add a new element called Mohit. So let's see so before adding any element which is Mohit, our original information list has only one element called Python. Now after appending Mohit, the new list has now 2 elements, which is Mohit and Python. Now another functionality what the list has given, we can do a lot of different operations as well. For example, we can count the total number of elements in the list. We can do addition. We can find what is the average of the list. We can also find the min value, max value, and multiple different things we can do. So the operations on the list. So let's say I have created a new list called age, which has 4 elements, 20, 34, 56, and 18. Now I want to know how many elements are present in this list called age. So as we can see that there are 4 elements are present, but in Python we can use the function called len, length, or you can len, and then you provide the name of that list. For example, len is a function, and then I'm passing the list called age, and it will basically tell me how many total number of elements are present in the list. Similarly, I can do the summation of the list as well. So this list has four values, 20, 34, 56, and 18. So I want to know what is the total sum of those 4 elements. So I can do through the function called sum. So sum is the function, and then you can pass that list called age, and it will tell you what is the summation of all the numerical elements present in the list. Similarly, I can find the mean value as well. So it will tell me what is the mean of those 4 elements, what is the maximum value in this list, which in this case I 56, and similarly it can also tell me what is the minimum value of this list, which is 18. So the function to find the maximum value is very straightforward, max. For finding the min value is min, and then pass the list, which is age. But the thing is that for the average or finding the mean of the list, there is no direct function as such. So what you can do, you can find first the summation of the list and then divide it by the total number of elements in the list, and then it will tell you what is my mean value or the average value. So let me run this cell and see what are the output we get. So we can see that the length of the age list is 4. It means there are 4 elements in the list. Secondly, it will tell me the total sum of age list, which is 128, which 20 plus 34 plus 56 plus 18, which comes out to be 128. And then the third is telling me the mean. So mean is coming out to be 32, which is 128 divided by 4 equal to 32. And then the maximum age in this list is 56, and the minimum age in this list is 18. So this is how we can do all the operations in the list, finding the total number of elements, addition, maximum, min, and bunch of different operations. So I hope these operations are very clear to you. So let's move to the last part of the list, which is combining multiple lists into one. Now so far what we have learned so far is to create individual lists, do multiple operations on top of it. But in this segment, which is the last segment of our list, is how to combine multiple lists into one. Now there are a couple of ways we can combine multiple lists into one, depending on it totally depends about our requirement or the business application. So for example, the first way we can combine the multiple lists into one is to append one below the other. For example, let's say this is the list number 1 what we have created. It has 3 values, Mohit, Python training. Then list 2 also have 3 values, 30, 10, 20, and we want to combine one above the other. So for example, the output should look like this. So the column A has 2 values, Mohit and 30. Column B has 2 values, Python and 10, and column C has 2 values, training and 20. So it's like one below the other. So list 1 on top of list 2. So the way we can do is very simple. Create a new list called, let's say, name underscore age. You can give any name you want, and then create a square brackets, and inside the square bracket input all the lists what you want to combine. For example, we want to combine 2 lists, which is name and age. So name comma age, and now I'm printing the output of this append or concatenation or combination. So when I run it, I will get Mohit Python training, which is the first row, and then 30, 10, 20, which is the second row. So it's combining one below the other. This is the one way we can combine it. The second way to combine the list is to more like in this format. So we have a list called Mohit Python training, and the list 2 is 30, 10, 20. Now the way we want to combine is, the column A will contain all the names, column B will contain all the numbers. So for example, the row number 1 would have value Mohit, and then next to it's 30. Then in the row number 2, we will have a value Python, and the row number value has 10. And similarly, we want a third element, which is training, and then next to it is 20. So this basically means we are like a transposing. So Mohit Python training will come in one column, which is A, and then 30, 10, 20 will come in the second column, which again gets transposed. So we want in this format. So it's very simple to do it. We will use the function called zip, zip. Now inside the zip function, we'll input the list, which is name comma age, and then we want to convert them into a list data type. So outside we are providing the list. So again, first inside the circular brackets, we will input the list which we want to combine, name comma age, and this is done through zip function zip. Once it converts and combine into in this format, then we want to convert this into a list format, which is done through list. So list. And we can see that now we are getting 3 rows. The first row has value Mohit 30, second row has Python 10, and the third row has training 20. So far what we have created a name underscore age 2 we have already created in this format, which has 3 rows and 2 columns. Now we have already learned how to access the values of the list. Now in this scenario, when we have like a multiple columns and the multiple rows, the concept is exactly same. So now in this case you need to pass 2 locations instead of 1 location what we have provided earlier. In this scenario we will provide 2 locations. First we will provide the row number and then the column number. So for example, if I want to know what is the location of this training element, so first I will check the row number, which is 2, and then the column number, which is 0. So the first location we will provide the row number, and the second we will provide the column number. So let's say I want to know. So first I will provide 2 in the square brackets, which is the row number. Then in the square brackets I'm passing the column number called 0. So I'm expecting the output should come out to be training, and it's training. So this is how you can figure it out, what is the value present in which cell of the list, and this is how you can access any element in the 2-dimensional list. And another way how can we combine multiple lists? Instead of passing the list, we can pass the values of the list. So for example, on the top we are passing the variable list, name and age. Now let's say you don't want to create those 2 lists individually like name and age. Instead you want to pass their values. So Mohit 30 would be the first row or the first list, Python 2 would be the second row or the second list, and the training 20 would be the third row or the third list. And then you will store the output into name underscore age 3, and this is the output you will get. So it will tell you that there are 3 rows, Mohit 30 the first row with 2 columns, Python 10 second row 2 columns, and the training 20 third row with 2 columns. So this is how you can create a feel like a spreadsheet where you have a multiple rows, multiple columns, and then you can perform different operations, whether to add, delete, update, or you can do different operations like addition, finding the min value, max value, and the average of those values. So hello everyone. In today's session we will going to learn a new data structure in Python called tuples. So tuples is another data structure which is quite similar to like a list, except for few minor differences. The one is the way we define the tuples. So for example, as you know that in list we define any element inside the square brackets, but in the case of tuples we define the values inside the round brackets or a circular brackets. And secondly, as we know that lists are mutable, which means that we can update or add or delete any value after defining it. Whereas in the case of tuples, once we define the tuples, we cannot update, we cannot delete, we cannot add any element inside of it. So let's understand both of these things through some examples, and that will definitely gives you good understanding about the differences between tuples and the list. So let's say in the first example, I'm creating a list which has 4 elements, and the name of the list is called names underscore list, and it has 4 elements inside it: George, Mark, John, and XYZ. As you can see, since I have defined this as a list, I put it inside the square brackets. Now in the case of tuples, the variable name is names underscore tuple, and then I am putting all the values inside the round brackets or the circular brackets or the round brackets. Again, inside there also there are 4 elements: George, Mark, John, and XYZ. So let me run this cell, and they have been defined now. So let's first of all print out what is the data type of both the variables. So as you know that we can find the data type of any variable through a function called type. You just write down the type function and then inside the circular brackets put the name of that variable. So for example, if I run it, then it's saying that names underscore list is belong to a data type called list, whereas names underscore tuple belongs to the data type called tuple. So it's clear that in order to define a tuple, it has to be done through inside the values should be inside the round brackets or the circular brackets. And let me print it as well. We supposed to get the same thing, George, Mark, John, XYZ. So far so good. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that tuples are immutable. That means that once we define, we cannot update or delete or append any values inside it. So let's compare through the example of list and tuples. Let me recap the concept of mutable or immutable in the context of list now. So let me run the names underscore list. So in the original names underscore list, we have 4 elements as we already have defined it. Now let's say I want to update the first element of this list. So from George, I want to replace it or update to Python. So as you know that the location number or the indexes starts from 0, not from 1. So if you want to update the first element of any list or a tuples, you have to put it as a 0. So 0 signifies that it's the first element of the list or a tuple. So for example, let's say inside that list, I want to update the first element of a list from George to Python. And we can see that the new names list is now Python, Mark, John, XY. Now we have seen that in the case of a list, we were able to update the first element after defining it. Now let's try to replicate a similar example for tuples. Now as we know that our original names underscore tuple has 4 elements, same like George, Mark, John, XYZ. Now let's say we want to update the first element of a tuple from George to Python, and see it's throwing an error with saying that tuple doesn't support this kind of a functionality. So once defined, we cannot update it. It's done. We cannot change it. We cannot even update or delete or add. Now the question will come up like whether we need to select list or tuple, because list will give you the flexibility that once defined you can update, delete or modify their values, as compared to tuples, once defined you cannot do anything out of it. So the question is, how would we select which one to pick? And I think in my experience is totally depend upon your business application, business problem. If for example, if there is a certain variable or a certain element which are not supposed to change it once defined, for example somebody's SSN number, once entered into the system, then nobody should change it, or maybe the account number. So maybe in that case tuple would be a better choice as compared to a list, but again it's totally depend upon the business application, which will make more sense to your application, and then based on that you can select either list or tuples. And another thing before we wrap up the concept of a tuple, similarly the way we access the elements of list, we can similarly access the elements of a tuple as well. So for example, this is a variable tuple we have defined, and then we need to find out what is the first value the first element contains inside this variable. We put it as the square brackets and the index number or the location number, and it will tell you what is the value or the element in the first location or the first index. So it's quite similar to that. In this session, we will going to learn another data structure in Python called dictionary. Now so far, the way we have defined any element in list or tuples, you might have noticed that it doesn't have like a column header in it. For example, if we define any list, the first column would have 3 values like Python, R, MATLAB, and the second column has 5, 8, 10. But you might have been noticed or observed that hey, it doesn't have a column header, but in Excel sheet or a spreadsheet we always have like a column header, and those column header represent those values. For example, on the right side, which is has a column which is called names, and the second column name is experience, and then it has the values inside is Python, R, MATLAB, and the experience is 5, 8, 10. So in order to add the column header, we can use the concept of dictionary in Python to add those column header inside it. So dictionary basically can be used to create like a column header as well as like an LES, or you can give like some other names or the alternate names to the value. So similarly in this example, I'm telling that Python, R, and the MATLAB, these three values have like a different name or the LES or alternate name which we call as a names. So, or in other way I can say that, hey, I have created a two columns called names and experience. Name has three values in it, Python, R, MATLAB, and the experience column has three values, 5, 8, 10. So this is how you can differentiate between list and the dictionary. So list help you to create the rows or the elements. Dictionary will take it to another level where you can add the column header as well, and which can give you the feel of a like an exact spreadsheet. So let's take an example and understand how we define dictionary, how we can use the concept of dictionary, how can we create those LES, the column headers, and bunch of different things. So let's say we are creating two lists. The list number 1 is called names, which has 3 elements, Python, R, MATLAB, and the second list is called experience, and there are 3 elements, 5, 8, 10. You might have noticed that these are lists because I am providing all these values inside the square brackets. So Python will understand this is a list, and then what I'm doing is combining this two lists into one, names and experience into one list, and then through zip function, and then finally converting the output into a list. So when I run it, I will get a profile, which is a concatenation of two lists called names and experience, and this would be the values, Python 5, the second row would have R8, and the third row would have MATLAB 10. So you will get the feel of this example. So if you see on the top list, so actually your output will be looking like this one, Python, R, MATLAB 5, 8, 10. So this is how your output will look like in the case of a list. Now the next thing will come up, how can we add some kind of a columns or the column headers on top of it so that it will look more like a spreadsheet kind of thing, and that's where we can use the dictionary concept. So in order to define dictionary in Python, we will use the curly brackets. So whatever values you want to pass it inside, it has to be put it inside the curly brackets. So just a recap, list we use square brackets, for tuples we use round or the circular brackets, and for the dictionary we use curly brackets. So this is how Python understands that which is a data structure, what kind of a data structure is there. Now the very simple thing, I am creating a new dictionary called profile. This is the dictionary name, and then I am using those curly brackets, so Python will understand this profile is a dictionary. I am telling that, hey, create a first column called as names, and then inside that name pass the list called names. So the names have 3 values in it, Python, R, MATLAB. So these 3 values will go inside the names, and the names is called as a column header. And similarly, I'm creating a second column or a column header which is called as experience. The name of the column header is experience, and then inside that column header called experience pass this list called experience, which has 3 values, 5, 8, 10. So let me run and show you the output, and you can see that it has created a column header called names, and inside there are 3 values, Python, R, MATLAB, and the second column header is called experience, which has 3 values again, 5, 8, 10. So basically the output of the dictionary will look like similar to this screen on the right, which has names, experience, and then there are 3 values each of them. Now the next thing is to see that Python really recognizing it as a dictionary or not. So as you know that we will use the function called type to find their data type, and then inside the circular brackets you will put the name of that variable. So in that case it's a profile and it's showing dict, so it means a dictionary. Now the next thing is we have understand how to define it, we have understand how to find the data type. The next part is how to access the elements of a dictionary. Again, it's a very straightforward, very simple. The way we can do is to first write down the name of a dictionary variable. In this example is profile, and then we pass anything inside the square bracket. Let's say I want to know what are the values are there in the first column. So our first column is called names, or we can see here that this is a dictionary what we have created. The first column name is called names, and it has three values: Python, R, MATLAB. So the expectation is when we run this command, we should get the output as three values. And here come. So the values are coming Python, R, and MATLAB. Similarly, if you want to know in the column names, what is my first or the second element is there. So for example, I want to find out in this column called names, what is my second values there. So second values there is, the first value is Python, the second value is R, and the third value is MATLAB. So, or I can say that in the column, the first location is Python, the second location element is R, the third location element is called MATLAB. So when we can mention here is the name of the dictionary variable profile, then we pass the name of a column which is names, and then I'm passing as 1. So as you remember that the indexes and the location starts from 0. So if I pass this 1, it means I want to access the second element of that column. So if I run it, I will get the output as R. So we can see that the second element of the dictionary is R. So that's why we got the output as R. So this is how we can access the elements of a dictionary. The next thing we will learn is that, as you know, that the lists are mutable, whereas tuples are immutable. So the good thing is that dictionary is in the category of mutable. It means that once we define the dictionary, we can change the elements of the dictionary afterwards as well. So let me print the elements of the profile. So the profile has two columns, as we know, that names and experience, and that is their values. Let's say I want to update in the names column, I want to update the second element. So in the names column, the second element is R. I want to update the value from R to, let's say, Power BI. So the way we will do is to write down the name of that variable profile and then pass the name of that column, which is names, and then which element we need to update. So in the names, I want to update the second value, the second element, and as you know, that second element located in the location number 1, so we'll pass as 1, and then the new value, and we hit enter, and you can see that that the second element has changed in the column called names, whereas rest of the values are exactly same. So far I was explaining you in a very layman language about column header. So in order to understand the dictionary better, I was using the words like column header, but technically in Python or dictionary there is no technical word called column header. So the Python the dictionary, we use the terms as keys and the values. So keys and the values, or you can say that column headers are called keys and the value inside that column headers are called values. So for example, in our dictionary variable called profile, it has two columns, right? Names and the experience. So we can call that this dictionary variable profile contain two keys. So the first key is names and the second key is experience. And similarly, the first key, which is called names, has three values: Python, Power BI, and MATLAB. And the second key or the column header is called experience, also has three values: 5, 8, 10. So I hope it's simple. Keys and the values. So keys means column headers, and the values are the actual values which is there inside of that keys or the column. Now and then the next, there are a couple of functions what we can do. So let's say we have already defined a dictionary called profile, and somebody wants to know, hey, how many columns are there in this dictionary, or how many keys are there in the dictionary. It's very simple. You will use the function called keys. So name of the variable, which is profile, dot, and the function keys. And similarly, if you want to know what are the values are there in each of those keys, we'll pass profile, again the dictionary name, dot, values. And when I run it, it tell me that, hey, keys in the profile dictionary there are two keys, which is names and the experience, and the values in the profile dictionary are Python, Power BI, MATLAB 5, 8, 10. And as we know, and in this one I'm want to print out all the values of the keys called names. So it says that values in the key names are Python, Power BI and MATLAB. Hello everyone. Today in this video we will learn a new concept in Python, which is if and else statement or a conditional statement. I'm pretty sure that in your day-to-day life you have used multiple times if and else thing for any kind of a decision making. For example, let's say for stock price, if you have decided that, hey, if the stock price goes up by this amount, I will sell it, or if the stock price goes down by this amount, then I will buy it, or else I will keep it or don't buy it. So basically we use if and else to make some kind of a decision. Or the other example could be, hey, if my body temperature is above 100 degrees, then I will visit the doctor. Or if the temperature is less than 100, probably I will stay at home, take rest, and take some kind of a home remedies. For example, if you see on the screen on this image, it's like a person thinking about the weather. So is it raining or not? If it's raining, then bring umbrella. If it's not raining, then keep going. So it's like if and else statement we are using to make some kind of a decision, and then based on the decision we do some kind of an action. And similarly, in our Python programming language, we can do the exact similar thing, which is like to make a decision out of if and else. For example, in Python, the syntax of if and else statement is, if a certain condition happens, then I will do this action, else I will do some other action. That's it. It's exactly same like the way we do in our day-to-day life. So that's why the syntax of this if and else is very straightforward, very easy. Or in other example could be, if the body temperature is greater than 100, then I will visit the doctor clinic, else I will do or take a home remedy, and so on. So let's do some more concrete example, which is more related to the Python programming language, and we will learn how to implement what would be the syntax and what are the conditions and how the condition we can do and what kind of operations we can do on top of it. So let's take a very foundational, very basic example of if and else statement, very straightforward example. So let's say I'm defining a variable called a and I'm assigning a value equal to 25. So the variable a will have a value of 25. Then I'm writing a if and else statement. So what I'm saying is that if the value of a is greater than 25, then print this statement which saying that a is greater than 25. If the value else print a is equal to 25. So let me run and see this. So since we have assigned the value 25 to a, this if statement, which is a greater 25, it's basically false. This is not true, this is false, because actually our value of a is 25. So that's why, since this condition is false, it will skip this part and go into the else part of it and print a is equal to 25. So I hope that you have understood the basic thing about the if and else thing, but we can do much more on top of it. We can do much more sophisticated techniques. We can compare some other conditional statement as well, and at the same time, based on those conditions, we can do some operations as well. So let's say in this one, what we are saying is that if the value of a is greater than 25, then just simply print a is greater than 25, the way we did in the previous example. But now we are adding one more things on top of it, which is else. If a is not greater than 25, then go into this else block, print the value a is equal to 25, then a equal to a plus 5 means add 5 to the original value of a, which is 25. So the a will become 30 now, and then print now a is greater than 25 equal to something. So as we can see that in the first statement we have assigned 25 to a, so the first statement will get false, so it will skip this part. It goes into the else block. So in the else block, the first statement is printing just a message like a is equal to 25. In the second statement, we are adding 5 to 25. So the new value of a will become 30 now. 25 plus 5, so the new value will become 30. And then just print the new value. So the message would be now a is greater than 25 equal to a. So a is 30. So in this way, not only we can we can check the conditions, but we can do some operations as well. So now the next concept is multiple if and else statements. So far what we have learned, we are using only one if and else. But in reality, there could be situations when we have to use multiple if statements. So that is called multiple if and else statement, where we are checking not only one condition, but we are checking multiple different conditions. And each of those multiple different conditions, we are doing some kind of operations. So let me explain what does it mean. So let's say, continue with the same example, a equal to 25, so assigning 25 to a. In the first if, we are checking whether a is greater than 25 or not. If yes, then it will execute this statement, else it will go to the next block. So now this new keyword is called elif, which stands for else if. So the shorter form of else if is elif in Python. So it means else if a less than 25, then print the statement. And if both the statement gets false, both if and elif statement gets false, then skip both of this part and directly go into the else part and print the message, which is now a is equal to 25. So since we have assigned value of 25 to a, so the first two conditions will get fail or will get false, and it will skip these two blocks, and then it will go into the else statement which say now a is equal to 25. So we can see that now a is equal to 25. Now there are multiple conditional statement we can do. For example, so far we are checking only one thing, which is greater than or less than. But we can do multiple other conditional or logical statement as well. So some of the commonly used conditions are, like, first is the comparison operator. So comparison operator basically will check whether a equal to 25 or not. In Python, we do a comparison check by using 2 equal to sign. So whenever there is a 2 equal to sign, basically it's checking whether this value on the right side is equal to the value on the left side. Less than, if you are checking the value less than, we will use the less than sign. Less than equal to would be less than, and equal to greater than would be greater than. Then greater than equal to would be again same thing, greater than sign with equal to. Now here is the interesting part. So for example, if you want to check the condition whether a is not equal to some value, then in Python you will do with this exclamation mark with equal to sign. So exclamation mark equal to will Python treat as not equal to condition. So basically we are saying that a exclamation mark equal to 25 is, we are checking whether the value of a is not equal to 25. So if the value of a is not equal to 25, then do some operation. Then the next is the in operator, in. So the keyword here is in. So in Python, in is a keyword. So what it will do, that whatever values are present inside this circular bracket, it will check whether the value of a equal to Python. If not, then it will check the value of a equal to 25. If any of the value which is Python or 25 is equal to a, then that condition becomes true, else it will false. So the next is the OR operator. So OR operator basically will check the condition. If either of the condition is true, it will execute a series of statements afterwards. So for example, if a is less than 25 or b greater than 25 means either of them gets true, it will execute a series of statements. Whereas in the case of AND operator, both the condition has to be true, that a should be less than 25 and b has to be greater than 25. Then only it will consider as true and execute a series of statements. For example, let's understand through the example. In this case, the AND operator, I am defining two variables, name, storing a string value which is John, and an age, integer value where I am storing 23. Now in the if condition, I am checking whether if name equal to John and age equal to 23. It means since I have used the AND operator, means both the condition has to be true, then only it will execute this statement, else it will print not match. So we can see that both the condition get satisfied, and that's how it has print your name is John and you are 23 years old, else not match. Let me change the value to age equal to 24, and we can see that one of the condition gets failed, so it has skipped this if this print statement and goes into the else one where it's printing not match. And then on the OR operator here, the name is John. So in the if statement I have given the condition OR. It means either of the condition gets true, it will print this particular one, else it will print not match. So we can see that name is John, so this particular part gets true. So since this part gets true, it has printed the statement. Now let's say I'm changing the spelling. Now both the condition got failed, so neither of the condition got satisfied, so it has gone into the else block and print not match. Then for the not equal to operator, in the case of a not equal to operator, so I am defining x equal to 2 for the variable x equal to 2. In the first if condition, I am checking whether if x equal to 2, if yes, then print x equal to 2, else goes into the next block, which is else if block or elif block, x not equal to 2. So if this condition is true, x not equal to 2, then print x is greater than 2, or else print x doesn't equal to 2. So when I run this one, it's x equal to 2. And when I change the value from x equal to 4, this particular condition got satisfied, where it's saying that 4 not equal to 2, so print x greater than 2. And in the last one, which is in operator, so I'm defining another variable name equal to John. So what now in the if statement, I'm putting as name in square brackets John and Rick. So what it will does is that it will check whether the value of name present inside the square brackets or not. We can see that the value of name, which is John, is present inside this if or square brackets. So it means this if statement have been satisfied, so it will print this particular one, your name is either John or Rick. And let's say I change the condition in this way, then it will say that print name is not present because this John is not present inside the square brackets. So this if condition has failed, it will go into the else block where it will print name is not present. Hello everyone. So today the next concept what we are learning is called loop. So loop is an important concept and a very common concept in any programming language. So basically loop is used for executing a block of statements until some particular condition is satisfied. For example, let's say you have some numbers from 1 to 10 and the task is to add the task is to add 2 to every number and then display it 10 times. For example, let's say in the first column number which has 1, add 2 to it and then print the sum of it. Similarly, you have a second number, add to it and then print the sum of it, and then you have to do it like 10 times till the number 10. Now if we don't have a concept of a loop in our programming language, then the way we will do is probably in this manner: a equal to 1, that is a number 1, adding 2 to it, doing the summation and then printing its value. Similarly, a equal to 2, numbers 2, adding 2 to it and then printing the sum to it. Similarly, number 3 equal to 3, adding to it, doing the sum and then printing the output of it. So as we can see that in this way we have to do 10 times. So this looks very inconvenient, not very organized, very repetitive. And when we run it, although it's doing our purpose, that we are getting the right output, but from the programming standpoint, this is not a very convenient thing. It's not a very organized way, not a very efficient way of doing, because when we have a much more complex stuff to do, this looks very difficult to manage. So in order to avoid this scenario, we can use a loop concept in Python. So basically we use some different type of loops. One could be for loop or a while loop. But before we jump into the syntax of a loop functions, let's understand what is a range function is, because we need to use a range function in order to execute any kind of a loop. So range is one of the function in Python which basically expect three arguments, which is x, y, z. X is the starting, so from where you want to start your loop or from which number you want to start your loop. Then y equal to end, till what number you want to run this loop. And then z is equal to step size. So step size, if it's 1, it means you want to run from all the numbers from starting to end. If it's 2, it means that you want to skip one number, and so on. So for example, let's say this is the range function I have defined, then inside I'm passing three parameters, 5, 11, 2. So 5 means this is from where the loop will start, from this number the loop will start, which is 5. Now second number 11 means, like in Python, whenever we pass the end number as 11, it means Python will take it as 11 minus 1, 10. So basically this will run from 5 till 10. And then in the last argument I'm passing step size 2. So it means run in the increment of 2. So 5, then 7, and then 9, because the end number is 10. So basically the range function will print the values 5, 7, 9, because starting is 5, ending is 11, step size is 2. So as I said that 11 will take, Python will take it as a 10. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But since we have provided a step size of 2, so it will print the output as 5, 7, 9. So we can see it's coming 5, 7, 9. Now instead of step size 2, if I give a 1, then it will print the output 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As we can see that it's coming 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now the another way of writing this range function is that range and then passing only one argument, which is x. So what does it mean is that by default start would be 0. So by default the start would be 0. End would be x, because we have passed a value x. And by default step size would be 1. So for example, in this one, range 5. So what it's telling me is that start the iteration from 0, go till 5, which means 5 minus 1, 4. So 0 to 4, and print all the values from 0 to 4 in the increment of 1. Because by default the step size is 1, so incrementation of 1 will happen. So 0, 1, 2, 3. The another way to write is passing the two argument, which is x and y. So in this case, I'm passing the starting value, I'm passing the end value, but I'm not passing a step size value. So by default, the step size would be 1. So for example, in this case, range 5, 10 means it will print or the iteration will go from 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we can see that output is coming 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you will see the why we need to use this range function in the context of a loop, why it's important. Now let's understand the syntax of a loop. So the first loop which we're going to discuss is called a for loop, F-O-R, for loop. That is the first loop which we will discuss in this video. Syntax of the for loop is very simple. First, you have to use a keyword, which is a Python inbuilt keyword for, F-O-R. Then the iteration number means you want to start a loop from which number till what number, and what would be the step size of it. And that's where the range function will help us in that. And then series of operations, or the task or the statements you want to do. As you can see, the syntax looks very straightforward. For, keyword, then your iteration, which could be your starting number till end using the range function, and then inside the for loop whatever operations you want to do it. Now let's understand through an example. Through the previous exercise what we did, where we have this particular scenario where from numbers from 1 to 10, add 2 to each of it and then display its value or the output or the sum. So we saw that how we did that thing without the loop context. Now with the help of a loop, what we will do, we will say that for loop, let's put it as range 0 to 10 because we have to go from number 0 to 10 or 0 to 9 or 1 to 9, whatever you can say that. So it will start from 0, it will go till 10. So 10 means 10 minus 1, 9. So the range function will go from 0 to 9. And then the output of this range 0 to 9 will get stored into I. The output of this thing will get stored into I. So inside the for loop, what I am doing is printing the value of I. So here before add, what is the value of I? Then to each number, I am adding a 2 to it. And then I am printing after add. So let me run it. And we can see that. So it will run 10 times now. So this range start from 0 to 9. So when the value is 0, so that 0 will first go into I. So I becomes 0. And then it will print the value of I equal to 0 before add equal to 0. Then after add it will become 2. So we have add 2 to. Once this set of operation is done, then this range will increment from 0 to 1 and this 1 will get input into I. So now the value of I equal to 1. And then in the value of I equal to 1, I am adding 2 to it. Then the new value of A will become, after add, become 3. Done. Then the range function will increment to 2, 0, 1, 2. So the value of I will become 2 now in this case. And now I am adding 2 to it. And this for loop will go till the number 9. So we can see that the output will go till 9. And when the value of I reach to 10, then it will stop. Because we have given the end number as 10. So the moment it touches the 10, this set of for loop will complete its job. That is the stopping criteria or the end point. So in this way, by using the concept of iteration or increment using the range function, we can do a series of steps, and once the stopping criteria meet, this for loop will get exit. So let me reiterate again about this thing. So this statement for loop, since the step size is 1, by default, since we have not provided a step size, it would be 1. So this block of statement will run 10 times from 0 to 9, which is 10 because the step size is 1. So first the value of range will be 0, and that 0 will go into I. So I will become 0 and execute all those steps. Then this range function will increment from 0 to 1. Then this 1 will goes into I will become 1 and perform all those instructions. Similarly, the range function will increment from 1 to 2 now, and then I will become 2. And this incrementation from 0, 1, 2, 3 till 9, it will go, and the moment the increment happen to 10, then it will exit because the end point is 10, because the stopping location is 10. So in this way we can use the for loop. So just like only 3 lines of code, we have done the similar thing, for which earlier we were using almost like 30 lines of code, which is not at all organized, but this looks much more efficient and organized. Now this similar thing we can do in while loop also. So in Python we also have another loop called while loop, and the syntax of the while loop would be quite similar to it. The only thing is that we typically don't use a range function, but we use a similar kind of a thing. What we are doing is that first we will initialize the value of I. So I'm initializing the value of I equal to 0. Then I'm saying that this while loop will go till the value of I is less than 10. As long as value of I is less than 10, then keep running the bunch of instruction which is written inside this while loop. And then at the end of the while loop, what I'm doing is increment the value of I by 1. So value of I by 1. So what would happen, first time when while loop will start, it will check the initial value 0. So 0 is less than 10, which is true. So all the values inside, all the instruction inside the while loop will get executed. And at the end of the statement, it's saying I equal to I plus 1. So now the value of I will become 1. So now it will check whether 1 is less than 10 or not. Yes, 1 is less than 10, it's true. Again it will run, and then at the end it will increase the value 5 from 1 to 2 now. So we can see the iteration plus plus I equal to 2, then 3, and then 4, and this set of things, this set of iteration will go till the value 5 is less than 10. The moment the value 5 becomes 10, then the stopping criteria is met and the while loop will stop. So if I run it, we can see that we are getting the similar kind of output what we got through the for loop. So even in the while loop we can do the similar thing. It's just its iteration thing is quite different. In the while loop, the iteration thing is quite different. In the for loop, we basically use the range function to iterate from starting point to end and the step size. But here we basically break down that range function into multiple things. So I equal to 0, that would be our starting point or initial point. Then during this while thing, it will check whether this initial value is less than the end value or not. So as long as this while loop is true, all the instructions inside it will get execute. And this last statement I equal to I plus 1 is like a step size. So this thing is very important. If you don't put this statement, then what would happen, that this while loop will go into the infinite, because the value of I will always remain 0 and this while statement will always be true, and it's like goes into the infinite, and that's where you need to kill this job or something. So it's very important you provide this iteration thing. I equal to I plus 1. If the step says you want 1, if you want 2 or 3, you can put any number. Hello everyone. In this video we will learn about the functions. So functions in Python are like a block of statements to perform similar operations or the statements, and these operations could be like adding two numbers, finding the main mix value, doing some kind of if and else, printing some statements. Now let's assume the scenario that this similar kind of operations are happening multiple times in your code, like multiple times. Sometimes it's happening at line number 20, sometimes it's happening at line number 35, 50, 80, multiple times are happening the similar kind of operations. So instead of writing the same set of instructions again and again, it's better to create like a macro or a function or a modular function where we will just need to call them at different places instead of writing a similar set of things again and again. So in this way, the Python gives us the flexibility to create a function, provide all the specific set of instructions in it, and then whenever it requires in your Python code, whether at line number 20, 50, 60, 100, just call that function. That's it. So it's like in one place writing all the instructions, and then whenever it requires in the code, call that functions. Now let's assume the scenario, we need to do two operations, which is addition of two numbers and then multiplication of two numbers. Let's say these operations are happening 3 times in your code. One is happening at line number 20, second time is it happening at line number 35, and the third time it's happening at the line number 78. Now we can see that all the 3 times we have written the similar kind of operations, additions, multiplication, then again d plus f, d multiplication f, and so on. So the idea of functions here instead of writing this repetitive code again and again, which looks very unorganized and look very long, instead of doing in a much more smarter way by creating a functions. So create a function, provide the operations which you want to do, in this case addition and the multiplication, and then whenever it requires at line number 20, 35, just call that function. So we can see that it looks more organized, more efficient as compared to this one, which looks very long, very untidy, very inefficient. So this is created a function add underscore multiply a comma b, which are the two input values. So inside the function I am doing addition of two numbers and the multiplication of two numbers and then printing their outputs. So if I run this, we can see that when I call the function at line number 20, which is add underscore mul, I am passing two values 10 and 20. Now inside I'm doing the addition and the multiplication. So addition of 10 and 20 would be 30 and the multiplication would be 200. So it has print, the addition and the division. Similarly at line number 35, I have again called the function add underscore mul and passing the two values, which is 2000 and 1000. So inside it will add 2000 plus 1000, which is 3000, and then the multiplication of it. Similarly at line number 78, I am again calling the function and then passing the two values 2 and 3. Now inside the function it will add 2 and 3, which is 5, and then multiplication of 2 and 3, which is 6. So you can see that this approach looks much more convenient, much more clean and efficient as compared to going in this very long process. Now another advantage of creating the function, let's assume that today you're doing two operations, which is addition and the multiplication. Now we have to do another operation, which is subtraction of two numbers. Now if we go in this way, where are no functions, then whenever we have doing this operation at 20, 35, 75, 8, I need to add another line of statement. It would be a minus b, a minus b. And since I'm doing 3 times in my code, then I have to update the code at 3 places. Now let's assume if it's present in 5 times or 10 times, and if I miss out in any of the place, then it can give me a wrong output. So instead of avoiding this inconvenient process, which has a lot of probability of getting errors, in the function I have to just update the code only in one location, which is inside the function. So I have just added sum is equal to a minus b, and that's it. And when I run it, I get the output. So that's another advantage of a function. So if any new thing comes up, you just have to update it one place, rather than in the old process where there are no function, then you have to update at all the places whenever you are doing those operations. So we can see that the code looks much more easy to understand, easy to explain, looks very much organized and very efficient in the sense. Now we have understood the benefits and the usage of a functions. Now let's understand how can we create our own customizable functions. So the way we can create our own functions or our own customizable function in Python, that will start from keyword. This is a Python keyword def, D-E-F. This is how Python will understand that you are creating a function. After writing the keyword def, then you will provide the name of the function. So provide anything very logical name or very sensible name, so that you can easily understand what it can be do. Like let's say I am giving the name as add div. The reason I gave this, it means that I am doing addition and division, or addition or multiplication, something I can easily relate what this particular function might be doing. And then inside the circular brackets you will pass the input values. So in this case I am passing two values, a and a b. So I am passing the two values, and then you can, inside the function, then you can write down all your instructions or the operations or any kind of things which you want to do. So once you do it, it's like you have built a machine. So machine is ready. Now in order to use this function, or in order to use this machine, you will call this function. So calling the function is add div, and pass this value 10, 20. So the moment Python will see this thing add div 10, 20, it will call this function, this one, pass these two values into the a and the b. So the value of 10 will go into a, value of 20 will go into b, and whatever instructions or the operations you have given inside the function, it will get triggered. So basically there are two parts of a function. First is to create a function, or I can say that building a machine. Now in order to use the function what you have created, or in order to use that machine, you will use in this way by calling the name of the function, like add div, and then pass the input values in it. So in this way we can use any function. So the another part of this is here, if you see the example of a function here, is What we can do is another thing which we can do in the function is returning the values. So first thing is that what we will learn about the return statement. The return statement is very important. So what it basically does is, let me comment this part. So what is the use of return statement is, or the return keyword is. So let's say I have called this function add_mul and then pass two values 10 and 20 in A and B. Now inside the def function, basically it's doing operations of addition, multiplication and subtraction, and the output of this operation we are storing in this three variable, which is add, div and sub, and then we are printing this values. Now if we don't use a return statement, the problem is happening is there, it's basically doing its job. It's calculating the add, div and sub, doing all those three operations, but the three variables what we have used, add, div, sub, only be present or available or known to this function inside of it. For example, in line number 41, let's say in line number 41, let's say in line number 41, I want to use these values, add, div, sub, what we have calculated in this function. The problem is, since the values only available inside this function, since the values only present inside this function, we will, so in line number 41, we will not know the value of add. So it throws an error, name add is not defined. So here the error is coming because the value of add is only known by this function, inside this function. Inside this function, I can use add, div, sub, all the three values, whatever I want to do. But the moment I will come out of this function and I want to access the values of these three variables, these values will not be available to me because these values only be locally available to this function. Now, in order to know these values, what I can do is use a return thing. So what I will do, return add, because return add. So return the value of this add back to this function. So I can put it in this way, add equal to add_mul. So add_mul will call this function, 10, 20 will pass the 10 and 20 into A and B. Then this function will do this operation, print the statements, and then it see the return add. So return add will means that it will return this value add into here add. Now when I run it, now it knows that add is equal to 30. Add is equal to 30. So in this way, return statement could be very helpful. Let's see another example of a return statement where we have three variables, a equal to 10, b equal to 20, c equal to 30. And I have created again a similar kind of a function, def add_mul, two input values a comma b. Then I'm doing three operations, doing three print statements, and then returning three values, which is add, this one, mul, and sub. And all those three values which I'm returning, it will go, add value go into s, mul, mul value go into m, sub value go into the sub. So the moment I will run this function or run this statement, it will call this function add_mul, then pass the two values a and b, which is this one, a10, b20. Then it will do the operations of adding, multiplication and subtraction, print these three values, and then return add, which is this mul and sub into s, m and sub. So we can see now s is available, m and the sub. So all the three values now which we have written is available outside of the function as well now. So if I need to use s, m and sub, which is this value, I can use these three values now in my line number, code line number 100 or 200 or 300, because now all these three values are available throughout the code now, not only restricted to within the function. Now this add, mul and sub, all the three variables will be locally available inside the function, which will not be available outside. But now since I've returned these three values and these three values output it's stored in s, m and sub. Now this 3 s, m, sub can be available outside the function as well. This will become like a global thing now in the code. Everywhere it will be accessible. So this is how we can use the return thing. Function what we have is called the lambda function. Now the lambda function have a very specific requirement. It basically used when we need to do a very small task, very simple operations, and they are usually defined using the lambda keyword. So whenever you want to do a very smaller task or a little task, you can use the function called lambda. So the way we define this function is through keyword lambda. Here this is a keyword lambda. I am passing the two values a comma b, then the colon, and then a plus b. So basically I'm asking that here do the addition of two numbers, which is a plus b, and the name of this whole thing, the name, which is I'm putting as c. So in our earlier example, we used to give the function name as, like in this example, and underscore mul, which is the name of the function, so that we can use this function to do certain operation. Similarly, here I am giving the name of this whole thing as c, and the output of this c I am storing in the d. So basically, whatever will be the output of a plus b will get stored back into the d. So the answer would be 30. Similarly, I can do if and else thing as well. Let's say I am creating a lambda function, lambda a comma b, two values I am passing as input values, then colon, and this is the instructions or the statements I am asking Python to do. What it's doing is that first it will checking if a greater than b or not. If true, then print this value as true, else false. And the name of this whole operation is I'm calling as c, and the output of this whole thing which will get stored in d. So this is false because our output is false, because value of a is so value of a is 10 and b is 20. So since the first if statement is whether a is greater than b or not, since value of a is 10, b equal to 20, so this if condition will get failed and it will go into the else block, which will print as false. So that's why we are getting the output is false. In this video, we will learn a new concept called a list comprehension. So let's understand what is the meaning of list comprehension, and then we will understand through some examples. So list comprehension basically is a concept which combines list or loops or if and else condition into single line of command or a single line of syntax. So instead of writing multiple lines of list, if and for loop, list comprehension give a flexibility that we can line the multiple lines of code into one single line of command. So basically it reduces your multiple lines of code into a single one. So let's understand through an example what I mean when I say that it combines list and loops and condition into a single line of code. So let's assume that we don't know a concept called list comprehension, and if given a problem statement, we will use like list and for and if and else into multiple lines of code. So in the first example where we are using without list comprehension concept, so the first question is create a list which stores employee salaries. So here I have already created a list salary, and it's storing the employee salaries, 4 employee salary, which is 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 and 25,000. Then the next part of the question is, let's say everyone got $5,000 increment in their salary. So it means that every employee is getting a $5,000 increment in salary. So it means the new salary will eventually become 15,000 and 25,000, 30,000 and 35,000. And it's saying that find a new salary and store them in a new list. So this is a new list I have already created, and right now it's empty because in this new list we will keep on adding the new incremented salary for each of the employee. So the way we will use our concepts is we will use a for loop to iterate each element of the list or each employee salary of the list, and then we will increment by $5,000. So as you know that there are two ways we can iterate our for loops. One is the range function and the second one is the in function. Now as you know, the range function basically will help in iterating our for loop, and it basically tell the for loop how many times it needs to iterate a loop. So for example, here I have already created a salary list which has salary of 4 employees, and then a new salary list which is an empty list, and in this list itself we will add all the new incremented salary. Now as I said, we will use a for loop using the range function. So as you know that range function will basically tell how many times it need to iterate. So here what we am doing is in the range function I'm putting length of salary. So as you know that length of salary is 4 because there are 4 elements in it. So it will iterate 4 times. So first time when it will iterate with I equal to 0, and then it will iterate I equal to 1 and then 2 and 3. So here what we have done, we have created a new variable, temporary variable or a temporary variable or an intermediate variable, which is basically storing the incremented salary of each employee. So in this expression, it will add the $5,000 to the first element of the salary list. So salary I. So first I would be 0. So salary 0. So in the 0th element we have 10,000. So here it will become 10,000 plus 5,000. So this 5,000 will get stored back into temp variable, and then what we are doing, we are appending a element into a list. So new salary list dot append temp. So in this way it will add the first new incremented salary. Then the counter will increment from I equal to 0 to I equal to 1. Now here it will check salary 1, which is 20,000, and then it will add 5,000 to it. So the new value of temp will become 25,000, and then this 25,000 will be added or appended into a new salary list, and then it will go for 25,000 and 30,000 and so on. So let me run and see the output of it. So here what I am doing, that inside the for loop I have one print statement. So basically it will print 4 times because the loop is going to iterate 4 times, and each of the time it will tell that it will print the new salary list output. So when the I equal to 0, it will say that I have incremented the salary to 15,000 and added that element into a new salary list. So that's why it's showing 15,000. Next time when it iterate to I equal to 1, so I equal to 1 is say 20,000 plus 5,000, so that will become 25,000. So it's showing that in the second run there are 2 elements have been added, which is 15,000 and 25,000. Similarly, when I equal to 2, it will store 25,000 plus 5,000, 30,000. So it will append 30,000. So in this way, you can see that inside that for loop, how the new salary list has been updated or added with a new element. And then finally, in the print statement, when all the iterations will get over, then finally print me the new salary list after increment is 15,000, 25,000, 30,000 and 35,000. So this is how we can use the range function to iterate each element of the list, and then increment the new salary, and then this new salary will be appended into a new salary list. Now this is the way we iterated using the range function. Now let's say instead of using a range function, you want to use an in operator to iterate your loops. So that is also very straightforward. So instead of passing the range and the length of the salary, we will pass the whole salary list itself. So for example, here I will put for I in and then the list, this salary list which has 4 elements in it. So what would happen, that when this loop will iterate, it will pick the first element of the list itself. So first element of the list is 10,000, then this 10,000 will go into I, and then what I am doing is that I am adding 10,000 plus 5,000, 15,000, and then the output of 50,000 will store back into temp variable, and this temp will get appended into a new salary list. The idea is same, it's just we are iterating in a different way. Now here we are iterating using the in operator. So in operator we don't have to worry about this index number or ith thing, because here we are passing the value of the element itself, which is 10,000. So here I will become 10,000. Then it will increment to the next element, which is 20,000. then the I will become 20,000, and then 20,000 plus 5,000 become 25,000, which will get appended into a new salary list. And if you see, we are getting the same output: 15,000, 25,000, 30,000. So there are two ways you can iterate your loop. You can use the range function as well as the in operator. I typically prefer in operator because then I don't have to worry about adding this this index number here. But it's your choice. You can use whichever you feel comfortable in it. There is no right and wrong. It's up to your choice. Now these two examples, what we done is we done through without list comprehension concept. Now the crux of this video is to understand the list comprehension and how can we use list comprehension to combine this, you know, this 4 lines of code, which is new salary list, for loop, this 4 lines of code into 1 line of a syntax using the list comprehension. Now through list comprehension, I have converted this whole 4 lines of a syntax into one line. And let me print and see the output. And we can see that output is getting same. So let's understand the syntax of this list comprehension step by step. So what we will do, first we will go in the same way, new salary list. I am creating a new list, which is an empty list. So this is how we did. So what I am doing is that whatever syntax you have written here, instead of writing outside of the square brackets, put it inside the square brackets. That would be much more easy. So inside the square brackets, then started writing a syntax from right to left. So you have to go from right to left. What I mean is that, for example, the first line of syntax here is for loop, for I in salary. So you will write here for I in salary. Then the next expression is saying temp equal to I plus 5,000. So what I'm saying is that inside the square brackets you have to go from right to left. So left would be here. So for I in salary, increment the value of temp I plus 5,000. So first element of salary is 10,000. So I will become 10,000, and here this 10,000 plus 5,000 will become 15,000. And the good part is that you don't have to provide this intermediate variable as well. You don't have to provide. You can write the syntax in this way. And because we have written this code inside the square brackets, so Python will automatically understand that, you know, the Python has to append this output back into this list. So we don't need to explicitly tell to Python, like in the previous case, we have to explicitly tell to Python that, you know, append or add this temp into new salary list. But in list comprehension, since we are doing this expression inside the square bracket, which means inside the list, so Python will automatically append this output into this particular list. And when we run it, we will get the similar output. So that is how we can use the list comprehension. Instead of using multiple line of codes, you can use the 1 line of syntax to do the multiple operations in it. So let's do some more example to give you a better understanding about this concept. Let's say we want to use if and else and loops as well using list comprehension. So the next question is, we are saying that if somebody's salary is greater than $20,000, then only increment that employee salary by $5,000. So if salary is less than $20,000, then don't increment the salary. But if salary is greater than by $20,000, then increment the salary by $5,000. So let's do without list comprehension concept. So you can see that I am creating an empty list, new salary list increment, which is empty. Now I am using the for loop and I am iterating using the in operator for I in salary. Now inside the for loop, I am checking whether the salary of an employee is greater than 20,000 or not. If it's greater than 20,000, then increment the salary by 5,000 and then store that output into temp variable, and then append this temp back into this empty list, which is new salary list increment. And else, if somebody's salary is less than 20,000, then append the ith one or the salary which is present here, which would be like 10,000 or 15,000. and then I'm printing before salary increment and the new salary after increment. And we can see that before salary increment, which is our original salary, and then new salary after increment, here only we have the increment of 30,000 and 35,000. Let's say now we want to do the similar for if listing using the list comprehension. So now we can count the line of syntax without list comprehension, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we have used a 7 line of syntax to do our for loop, I loop and then appending into the new list. But with the list comprehension, we can do in a 1 line of code. So let me break down first. So first you will create a empty list. Empty list. First step is to create an empty list in this way so that it looks very straightforward. The next part is you will copy the first line of syntax, which is for loop. For loop. Now we have added our iterative for loop. The next part is the if statement. So we will add our if statement. So since we know that we have to go from right to left, so we will add the if statement here. Now this is the important part here. What Python syntax works is that this particular syntax, which is I plus 5,000, it will be written on the left side. So if I is greater than 20,000, then increment the salary I plus 5,000 else. Now else part will come here. Else remain as I, and that's it. Now since as I mentioned that this expression is written inside the square bracket, which is list, now Python will automatically understand that output of this expression has to be added or appended into this list. So when we run it, and we can see that output is getting exactly same: 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 and then 35,000. So this is how we can use if else for loop in using the list comprehension, and you can see it looks quite straightforward, very simple. So let's do one more example. Now the question here is that if student mark is greater than input marks, then give a grade A, else give a grade B. Now we have one important function, which is input function. So there is a Python will give you a function called input, where if you use input and inside you have to provide some maybe question or ask user to enter some value, and then user will get the text box, like a text box where user can enter the value. And important thing is that this input function by default take any value as a string value. So even if you enter any numerical value, it will by default consider as a string. So it's very important that you use int to convert from string to int, so that when we use this value in our if and else statement or any kind of a mathematical operation, we get the right results. So what I am doing here is that I have created a list of students' marks. So we have 5 students, and that is their marks: 100, 67, 98, 75 and 55. Now I am creating another list called grades. So this is the empty list, grades, and inside this empty list we will see if student mark is greater than input marks or not. If student marks is greater than input marks, then we will provide a grade A, else we will provide a grade B. So for iterating the for loop, I am using the in operator. So I am passing this list student underscore marks, and then I am checking inside the for loop. If I is greater than this input value, then give the grade as A, else give the grade as B. Now it's asking enter the minimum marks to get A grade in the exam. So let's say I am giving 95. So we can see that since the student has a greater than 95, so this guy is getting A, whereas second student has only 67, which is less than 95, is getting B, and so on. So this is how we can use again for loop, if statement and then list combination, and you can see that again it's taking almost 5 to 7 lines of syntax to do this whole operation. Now let's see with list comprehension. So we will use a similar input function, and it will enter the marks. And what I am doing is, let me do it again. So first I am creating a empty list, grades equal to square bracket, which is empty list. Now inside the square list we will pass the for loop first. for loop, and then I'm passing this if statement. If, and remember that, you know, for the if statement you have to put it on the left side, and here if else assign b. And since this expression is written inside the square bracket, so Python will automatically understand that output needs to be added or appended in this list called grades. So when I run it, so let's say 95 again, and we can see that we are getting the same output, A, B, A, B, B. So you can see that list comprehension is a very powerful concept when we have multiple things to be done using list, if else, for loop. So instead of writing this 7 or 8 lines of code, you can write this one line of a syntax, which is easy to understand as well. But again, there is no hard rule that you have to use list comprehension. If you feel that this syntax is much better and easy to understand and easy to explain somebody, then probably you can use that one. But if you feel that, hey, I am very much comfortable and understand this particular thing, I want to use this syntax for writing my list, for loop, and if and else statements. So it's completely your choice. Whichever you feel comfortable, you can use that concept. And because sometimes it gets very crazy with if statement, for loop, maybe you can use the longer version. But if it's more like simple if and else, probably you can use the list comprehension. Thank you.